everyone always asks the same question. Every time we see a blue chip recruit that's going to Penn State, and everyone looks at the lineup and looks at the incoming recruits and starts doing the math, and they say, well, this doesn't make sense because it doesn't look like, how's he going to fit? How's this guy gonna wrestle? How's he going to get into the lineup? And we've seen it time and time again. We've seen it, especially over the last couple of years. I feel like it's accelerated, right? There's just more and more talent headed to State College, right? And I get the question. I ask the question many times, when, I'm thinking about it right now. How is KSAC going to fit at Penn State? How is, someone as good as PJ Duke going to fit? How are they going to fit in Joe Seeley? And now they just got the commitment from Will Hinkle very recently from Blair County, which kind of prompted the idea for this video. Because I thought about it more and more. And then I started looking at it from other sports perspective, because really there's no wrestling comparison to what Penn State's doing, right? They are one of one right now. They're just the dominant juggernaut force. They're not just the best. They're maybe one of the best ever. Like, this era of wrestling is, unmatched outside of Gable era, Iowa Hawkeyes. So you think about Will Hinkle going there. You think about Nate Desmond going there, entering that lightweight room that's going to have, Nagel for a couple more years. Going to have Luke Lilledal. Going to have Mason Gibson on it. Braden Davis, right? They got a lot of talent. And so everyone's like, well, how are you going to start? And then as I thought about other sports and thought about football, well, this is something that happens happens frequently in college football, and it happens appropriately with Alabama and Nick Saban. And so I started looking into this and looking into, what's Saban's pitch, right? Because pretend you're Will Hinkle and you're visiting this school, you're visiting that school, you're visiting Penn State. Well, what Nick Saban would say to guys is, hey, these guys are telling you to come to their school because you'll start right away. Well, if you come to Alabama, our track record is, we put the most guys in the NFL. We win, a national championship every couple of years. We play in the playoffs basically every single year. And ultimately, if your goal is to be a high NFL draft pick, no one does it better than Alabama. Okay. And then similarly, if another thing that he kind of can say, Nick Saban, and I promise I'm going to tie this back to wrestling, is like, well, if they're telling you you're not going to start at Alabama, then they're basically saying they don't really believe in you and how great you can be, because it's an open competition here at Alabama, and you'll have every opportunity to start. And so what they're basically saying is, the other team that's recruiting this fake 5-star football recruit, is that our team is not as good as Alabama's, and that's why you can start here. And so you think about that for Penn State, and what the recruit has to confront is, there maybe is a chance you don't start, but then you have to also kind of visualize yourself, and when you understand the drive, the egos, the belief, maybe not egos is the word, but the belief that these guys have in themselves, it's hard for a lot of these elite guys to put anyone ahead of them. It's hard for a Joe Seeley to say, oh, I'm not going to go somewhere because they have this guy or that guy. They all think they're the guy. And so I think that's what we're going to see more and more for Penn State. I don't think we're going to see it die off. I think it's going to be a common thing. And with NIL, right, and there's more tools, more weapons for Cael to play with, I think it's going to be more and more frequent that we see it. And also, I think on the other side of it, maybe the unsaid thing is, well, if it doesn't work out, maybe I transfer, right? And transferring's never been easier. Now, you don't see a lot of transferring out of Penn State, right? A lot of them stay. They've lost some high-profile guys, but typically they end up staying. And a lot of these problems, they can be worked around, and maybe someone's on the bench a year, or maybe someone has to take a red shirt or a gray shirt, or bump up into a weight that's maybe not their ideal. But, I also think that the Penn State staff has a good plan to, fit all these guys in. I don't think they're just stockpiling good wrestlers with no intent of using them. I think they are trying to get these guys to put them in their lineup. But I think ultimately the pitch is really tough, because that competition, which Coach Saban talks about, these Alabama guys get to compete against each other every day, and you'll see a cornerback raises their draft stock because they've been practicing against a top pick wide receiver every day and competing against that guy. And similarly, if you're competing against these guys in the wrestling room, you're going to be getting better. So I think it's actually something that could be accelerating. I think we could see more and more of it as teams or as these elite recruits start to think, man, if I want to be the best wrestler I can be, how do I say no to this? And at this point, it's hard to make a counter argument based on what Cael and staff have been able to do.